Hello and welcome to another episode of Xplained, where we take a deep dive into the biggest stories of the day. 2024 has been a year marked by elections across Europe and with them widespread political instability. 66 elections have taken place across the continent this year. While some more consequential than others, every election offers a snapshot of where the public stands politically. In Germany, a government crisis is unfolding. France has just ousted its prime minister. Meanwhile, the UK's Labour government is grappling with record low popularity ratings. These are just a few examples of the challenges facing Europe in 2024. Against this backdrop of turmoil, a new wave of ideology is creeping through Europe, one that could reshape its political landscape. Europe, a region proud of its legacy as a cradle of liberal democracy, is witnessing the rise of the far right. And this time, it's not just on the fringes. Far-right parties are gaining and wielding real political power. Today, 8 EU member states, Austria, Croatia, the Czech Republic, Finland, Hungary, Italy, the Netherlands and Slovakia all have far-right parties actively participating in their governments. These parties, known for their nationalist, anti-immigration and EU-skeptic agendas, have gained prominence in recent years. Their influence is shaping policies on everything from border controls to social issues, marking a dramatic shift in the region's political landscape. For the first time since the 1940s, a party considered extremist has won a state election in Germany. Meanwhile, far-right parties have made significant gains in this summer's European parliamentary elections. Mass migration, climate action and aid to Ukraine are some of the most hotly debated issues, shaping the ever-evolving landscape of European politics. So what exactly defines the far right? Why are these parties and their beliefs resonating so strongly with European voters? And how have Europe's current political, social and economic challenges fueled their rise in recent years? Let's dive in. The issue of immigration remains a key driver behind the rise of the far right in Europe. In 2022, 5.1 million migrants entered the EU from non-EU countries. This wave of migration has been driven by factors such as conflict, economic hardship and climate change, pushing people to seek safety and opportunity in Europe. The influx has placed pressure on border and management systems, while also sparking debates about integration and the continent's capacity to support new arrivals. To give a specific example, in the UK, net migration in the year ending in June 2024 reached 728,000, a record high. The country also leads Europe in illegal migration, with an estimated 745,000 undocumented individuals living in the UK. This has led to the rise in popularity of Reform UK, a new political party led by Nigel Farage. The party sees the elimination of immigration to Britain as a priority. Furthermore, with recent geopolitical developments like the liberation of Assad's regime in Syria, the debate over immigration shows no sign of slowing down. With 1.2 million Syrians living in Germany, there have been calls by many, especially the far right, for them to return home. AfD leader Alex Vidal made her view known on X after Assad's regime was overthrown. The normalisation of these migration policies are mirrored in Sweden, where a proposed law would require public sector workers to report undocumented individuals, a move critics say further erodes human rights. Meanwhile, countries like Italy under Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni provide examples of how far-right policies are normalised, such as curbing gender rights and limiting abortion access. Mass migration is usually one of the most crucial factors cited for the rise in nationalism in Europe. The war in Ukraine has brought European unity and solidarity to the forefront. Aid to Ukraine, both military and humanitarian, has been a major focus for EU policymakers. However, far-right parties have capitalised on growing discontent among many over financial support to Ukraine. In Italy's Giorgia Meloni's government has proposed cutting aid in favour of domestic spending. Similar sentiments are echoed in Hungary, where Prime Minister Viktor Orban has been a vocal critic of the EU's stance on the war. The far-right's success is not without resistance. German lawmakers are now considering constitutional changes to protect institutions like the Federal Constitutional Court from political interference. So what is driving this surge in far-right support? Let's break it down.
In a nutshell, or shortly put, it stands for a form of authoritarian nativism. Now, what these two terms mean is essentially that much as the key difference between the right and the left is in the approach of these two broader political ideologies to the issue of inequality. So the far right, in that sense, would naturalize inequality, present it as something that is not to be necessarily fought, is not necessarily something to be addressed through social policies. And that inequality essentially in the far right imaginary means as like a society where everybody knows their place. Specifically, obviously, the far right wants to distinguish between those who belong to the nation and those who do not. So this is what explains this nativist sentiment.
The far right encompasses a spectrum of nationalist and conservative ideologies. These parties often emphasize anti-immigration policies, cultural preservation, and skepticism towards globalization or supernatural bodies like the EU. Far-right movements aren't new. Their roots can be traced back to the interwar period, but the post-Cold War era saw a decline in their influence. This began to reverse in the late 2000s, spurred on by economic crisis, rising migration, economic anxiety, cultural backlash, and distrust of traditional institutions are key factors. Let's take a closer look at each. To give some examples, in France, 57% of blue-collar workers voted for French far-right National Rally in the first round of the parliamentary elections. Similarly, the Alternative for Germany won 46% of workers' votes in the Brandenburg state election. Economic discontent is a significant driver as these movements are known to surge in support in times of economic hardship. Migration and progressive agendas fuel cultural anxieties. Austria plans to deport Syrian migrants back to the Middle East after Assad's fall, sparking debate throughout the rest of Europe, which in its entirety hosts approximately 2 million Syrian refugees. Meanwhile, in Poland, the right to asylum has been temporarily suspended despite a change to leadership and EU law, a seemingly far-right policy adopted by a liberal government. Traditional media is often seen as elitist, while far-right parties effectively use platforms like TikTok and X to reach disillusioned viewers. In July and August of this year, anti-immigration rhetoric stoked the disorder across parts of northern England and Ireland in the wake of the killing of 3 girls in Southport. Online misinformation and anti-immigration posts led to targeted attacks on mosques and hotels housing asylum seekers. Social media posts from far-right supporters encouraged like-minded individuals to mask up and attack dozens of immigration law firms. Far-right parties appeal through simplicity, directness, and promises of sovereignty, often resonating with those feeling left out of decision-making processes. Polarization, us versus them narratives, and inflation are other factors contributing to the far-right's appeal. From Marine Le Pen's National Rally in France to Germany's AfD and the UK's Reform Party under Nigel Farage, the far-right's influence spans Europe. Portugal's Chega Party, the Italian Brothers of Italy, and Hungary's Fidesz are also shaping policies in profound waves. The rise of the far right in Europe is a story that continues to unfold with potential impacts on democracy, and we'll keep tracking all of those latest developments. With that, we come to an end of this episode of Xplained. Thank you for watching NewsX World.